Well, you know, the war's already started, right? And we haven't even begun. So, those of you who know me, particularly Mike, I speak pretty passionate. So my job here is to get you fired up, to have you know the truth behind things, because I'm sure you don't hear it on some of the network television stations. So, as a physician, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the importance of passing issue 3. So, let me open, and I'm going to use some of my notes as well. Fellow citizens of Ohio and Tea Party members, 912 members, and liberty-loving individuals. My name is Dr. Lisanti. I'm a board-certified family physician who's practiced medicine for 12 years here in Ohio. One of the things that all physicians are required to say and take when we graduate is the Hippocratic Oath. And it boils down to something just very simple. First, no matter what you do to the patient, don't harm them. If we partake in this law, we're going to harm you. So that's my opinion, and I'll go forward and talk more about it. I firmly believe that the healthcare law, we call the Obamacare, they call the Affordable Care Act, would do harm. I believe that the healthcare law that mandates some citizens to participate in it or face a penalty, while others who are connected to companies and unions strong enough to get a waiver exempt, does harm. How about you? Yeah. I firmly believe that any law that's issued by the federal government that mandates its citizens to purchase health care insurance, that if upheld by the Supreme Court, sets a dangerous legal precedence for your government to grow even stronger, and for those politically and power-hungry individuals in D.C. that already think they know everything about everything, to mandate you purchase anything they want and reflect back to this law as legal precedence. I believe that does harm. It's not what our founders want, and it's not what our men and women in the military fight for every day now, for our freedoms and freedoms of those around the world we're meant to do. It's never what our founders wanted. Let's talk about waivers, because I think Jim and others have alluded to waivers. Let me give you an update about where the waivers are right now. As of July 2011, there were 1,472 one-year waivers. What do you remember about waivers? What were we told? They were temporary, right? And they would be one-year waivers. Right? Do you know about any 3-year waivers? You didn't hear about that, right? Well, guess what? As of right now, there's 106 3-year waivers granted to companies and unions until 2014. You didn't hear about that. Let me tell you some more you didn't hear about. All those waivers as of right now represent 3.4 million individuals. More than half of that number represent union members that supported Barack Obama in 2008 for election. Those members only represent 12% of the working members of this country. So what's fair for everybody and what's mandated for everybody, everybody should be covered under, not exempt from. The thing that angers me is the very people that pushed for this law, that encouraged their members to go out and donate and support this law, including AARP and the unions, somehow got waivers from it. It's interesting, because you know what? Nancy Pelosi was right. You'll find out what's in the law after we pass it, and when they found out what was in it, they didn't want to be in it. But guess what? You that don't have a strong person to lobby for you, you got to buy it, or face a penalty, or now we're going to call it a tax. So guess what happened on June 17th, 2011? The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services introduced a process for those who had already filed for their one-year waiver to extend that waiver. till January 1st, 2014. Kind of convincing, isn't it? As the polls drop for Barack Obama, we extend waivers. So these chosen ones now have a waiver until they can file for this waiver until mid-September 2011. But guess what? That waiver goes until 2014. Good reason to re-elect, right? Does that sound fair? Or does that sound like a gift to the chosen ones? As we enter a campaign cycle, do you think that might not encourage donations? So after 2014, or maybe after 2012, that 3-year waiver might be extended again? Just something to think about when the other side says that we're trying to take health care away from people. The very side that accuses us doesn't want to participate in it themselves. All issue 3 asks for is that every Ohioan, union member, non-union member, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Islamic, gets a chance to choose whether they want to participate in this or not. That's what you go back and tell them when they criticize and get in your face. This gives everybody a waiver. When they finally find out how much each one of these tiered plans are going to cost them. And that's what you deserve. You tell them that. You tell them that in your churches. You tell them that in your email list. You tell them that in your friends, in your group when you go out. You can ask my wife. Somehow, everywhere I go, it comes up in the conversation. Maybe that's why not too many people ask me to go out. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I don't think it's fair. Let's talk about the many more exemptions that make this law not fair. There are other exemptions. For example, illegal aliens are exempt from it. Certain religious groups are exempt from it. Now understand this. Those individuals, by law, would still be access to emergency care in the emergency department. But what I find interesting, when I practiced in rural America, they were very interested in the emergency care that was available. But then after they were done using it and finished with it, they no longer wanted to pay for that. Well, guess what? The whole idea of this mandate is so we spread the cost, right? But if you have special groups that say, hey, I'm exempt, and I get a waiver, and I get a waiver, who gets screwed in the long run? You. Because to maintain the highest quality of medicine, particularly in the emergency department, it costs to maintain that care. It costs to maintain it. To fly a life flight helicopter out to an Amish field when the child was ground up in a manure spreader costs lots of money to maintain that staff. And somebody has to pay for it. So saying that I just want to pop into the system when it's convenient for me and then pop back out, I think is wrong. And guess what? Built into this law is that very thing. Oh, you can sign up for the system, and guess what? You can sign out, right? Because pre-existing penalties are gone. So you can sign up anytime it's convenient for you, and then when it's not convenient, you can step out and pay the penalty. And then guess what? You have 3 months of exemption before you're penalized. So I can sign up for a month, drop off 3 months before I get penalized, sign back up for a month, drop off for 3 months. Make sense? No, doesn't make sense. So, a lot of bad things built in. And the penalties in the very beginning of the law, if you kind of look up until election 2012, the penalties to not participate are so minor that you would be better off not to participate. Because at this point, we have no idea what the tiered systems will cost. Here's another thing that'll scare you, particularly if you're in Medicare, right? Remember, $500 billion were taken out of Medicare to spread and move to Medicaid to cover allegedly 24 million more people to come on to health care insurance. That number that is going to be covered changes every day. What they didn't tell you buried into that is something called the President's Independent Payment Advisory Committee or Board. That's in Medicare. This committee is solely appointed by the President, and they decide what Medicare payments will be for physicians. Now, there's no mandate. I think it's 15 members and if I quote myself wrong, I apologize, but it's roughly around 15 members, and their salary annually is around $150,000 to $160,000. And their idea is to figure out a way to make healthcare more cost-effective. I didn't say quality, I said cost-effective healthcare. So you have to listen between the lines when you start to hear about them talking about healthcare, because they're going to say cost-effective healthcare. And when you think about that or you hear about that, I want you to think about Apple computer or e-machine. Apple computer, e-machine. What are you willing to pay for quality? And do you want to demand high quality but cheap price? I'm not sure how that goes. Do you get a Samsung television, or do you get the cheap Sanyo or something else? So, I mean, something to think about on that. So anyway, this 15-member board, one mandate that they have to be made up of physicians. A lot of them are going to be bureaucrats from colleges. A lot of them are going to be bureaucrats some can be from the union. But my point is this: none of them are going to be directly involved in healthcare. And these guys are going to make decisions. They passed that recommendation down for cost-cutting measures for Medicare that is passed down to Congress. Ready for this one? And if Congress doesn't come up with cost-cutting measures equal to theirs, or more strongly, their recommendations become law. Sound like a giant czar board to you? You probably didn't hear about that. Independent Payment Advisory Board under Medicare is built into the law. So I just want to let you know some things you might be concerned about. Let's talk about the AMA role, because the AMA's recently, AMA, American Medical Association, they just reaffirmed their support for the law. Well, let me tell you who the AMA really is. It's not me. I don't hold a membership card. The AMA does not represent the opinion of a majority of physicians. It only represents, you ready for this? Its membership is only made up of 17% of the practicing physicians in the United States. How's that sound? Where does the AMA get the majority of its money? From membership dues? No. From selling a book called the CPT code book or ICD-9 code books. Both those books that most hospitals and physicians are mandated to purchase, or at least highly encouraged to purchase, because that's how we got to that's how we bill the insurance or bill Medicare, Medicaid, not by your diagnosis, but by a code. So if I don't know those codes, and somehow frequently every year those codes change just a little bit, then I need the latest version of the book. So they have the sole authority and license to publish that book that we all have to buy. That's where they make the majority of their healthcare dollars. So when it comes time to supporting it or not, I'm sure there was a conversation, wow, I hate for you to lose that license for that book. Anyway, let's talk about current physicians' opinion about the AMA. In fact, in a recent poll, 77% of physicians agree the AMA do not represent their opinions and how they feel about this law. Let me ask you that hold an AARP card, do you think the leadership of AARP represents your best interest? No. Neither does the AMA when it comes to physicians, but that's not what you hear. Let me tell you this also, the AARP, who spent millions of dollars as a proponent or supporter of this law, all other insurance companies, 80% of their premium dollars were supposed to go back for health care and only 20% towards profit or administration. Our friends at the AARP Insurance Bureau got a waiver from that, and only about 65 to 67% of their premiums had to go back to health care. The rest could go back to their profit. Their CEO, there was a limit on what CEOs of healthcare insurance companies could make, but not for the AARP healthcare administrator. So all this is about fairness. There was a Gallup poll that also has recently shown that the uninsured in America, since this law has been enacted, has actually increased. So, where do we go from here now? Let them bum and yell, and you need a Prozac, see me afterwards. What do we do? I'm going to focus you back into what issue 3 is. People are going to say, you want to take away people's health care. You want to take away the pre-existing. You want to take away health care for my kid at 26. It has nothing to do with that. This has to do with power. It has to do with individual rights over group rights. You deserve the right to choose. Just like every other company who says, I want a waiver, you and every union member that says they don't want to be in it, you deserve the right to choose. That's what issue 3 is about. Go yes. And get in their face about it. Say, if your member organization deserves a waiver, McDonald's, Olive Garden, Red Lobster, Universal Studios, numerous unions that supported it. I'm not against them. I wouldn't want it either. But you deserve that right to say, I don't want it. What do we do? First thing you can do is go on a website if you're internet savvy. Go to OhioansForHealthCareFreedom.org or see some of our friends over here in the booth and make a donation. Let me tell you where we are. We're George Washington at Valley Forge. It's cold. We don't have very much equipment. Our soldiers are sick. We got blood on our feet. And there's a big British army out there that wants to attack us. Did anybody hear the word army recently mentioned in Michigan?
Yeah.
Did we also hear sometime in 2008 we will have a civilian army?
Yeah.
It's ironic, isn't it? Anyway, you have to be the army for patriots. And I hate to tell you this, the fight is going to cost and take money. Even $5 will make a difference. So if you can make a donation, you can go online and make a donation. You can make a donation here. If you don't feel comfortable online, pick up one of their postcards and send a check in. It doesn't have to be much, but even a little every month would be helpful, or every week. That's one thing you could do. The other thing is just what I talked to you about, and you can go to their website and find out more information. Talk to your friends at church, in your family groups, your family members, your friends, and on your email list. Just say, hey, this is just about each one of us getting our personal waiver and the freedom to choose. This is about liberty and choice. Okay, so issue 3, tell them to vote yes. And lastly, get involved with getting out the message by going on the website, by signing up to be a volunteer, by going to the polls on November 3, and by telling your friends it's not about taking things away from anybody. It's about preserving the freedom to choose, and by stopping the government's precedence to take away your freedom. Because if this passes and the Supreme Court rolls it legal, what will they tell you to purchase next? And I guarantee you, attorneys will tell you they will reflect back to this law and the mandate to purchase. So, lastly, please vote yes on issue 3 in November. Vote to protect your freedom to choose and show those in D.C. and each and every one of us deserve our waiver to participate in a law that we think will harm us. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the United States.